Welcome to the Bodcast episode 3, and it is the three of us today, and we're going to be discussing pre, peri, and post-workout nutrition, as not only do we get a lot of questions on this, but it's also really important. Whether your goal is building, whether you're in a fat loss phase, getting pre, post, and for some peri-workout nutrition is really important. So let's dive in. This is actually our second time recording this.
Yeah.
We started and my Zoom went on the blitz. I've never seen that.
After 38.
How far did we get? 38 minutes.
We were doing
Yeah,
good. We were doing good. We were in the flow, and then I've never seen that. And anyway, I think it was an update on Zoom.
Just say the drivers and the update were not at par. So yeah.
Anyway,
technological issues.
I remember one of our first episodes we had to record twice. Do you
Yeah,
remember there was another one
yeah.
that did it, and it was I
think we were still figuring out the apps, the sound. It was one of the very first ones.
Yeah.
Actually,
It was very early. But yeah, I mean, we've got another episode that we recorded at the moment that we're still chasing. So our 100th episode is still somewhere in the atmosphere.
In the cloud.
In the cloud somewhere, doing something. I don't know. Hopefully it's in the cloud. It's not
it is bizarre thinking that, isn't it?
December mood sort of here. Even the apps are almost going.
Everyone's on holiday.
Yeah, that's true. So you say it's getting really cold in the UK, Andy. I know in Scotland it's snowing.
I regret, because I got back late last night from travelling and I left my suitcase and stuff in my car. So I've got to get that out at some point. Which would be good because I've got some tracksuit bottoms, some nice clean tracksuit bottoms in there that I was going to slide on now. And I was like, I'm in the car. So I'm just sitting here in shorts and stuff, but my heating's on. But no, so the weather's proper wintry, but we got I don't know if you can see that.
Negative.
Got a tree.
Oh, wow. Well,
a tree. It's going to be a bit blurry, but
right,
the tree set up. So we're all in Christmas mode here, like for that sort of stuff. So weather needs to be cold. That's the whole point of, and that's why I never do Christmas in Kenya. I don't do warm Christmas. It needs to be cold Christmas.
Yeah, well, we usually finish up our recording before the Christmas sort of period, but this time we'll just carry on going. We're not feeling very festive at all.
Not yet.
Not yet anyway, but maybe we'll get there.
Yeah.
But let's dive right into it.
See, I was going to say before you start, you went to Edinburgh at the wrong time. If you went now, you'd feel festive.
That's
Edinburgh and Scotland in the winter. You wouldn't have been able to walk far, but it made you feel festive.
No, all the lights I've seen, like my brother said, it's so.
Edinburgh's really nice during Christmas.
So festive. Here, like if you don't go out much, like you can completely. Not feel
the usual places, the Yaya Center probably, and
the malls.
A few lights at the malls. That's it.
But it's not quite the same as a cold northern hemisphere winter. Yes. So let's dive into this topic. And like I say, I think a lot of people don't realize that your sort of nutrient timing is really important, whatever phase you're in. If you're in a fat loss phase, if you're in a gaining phase, it's important, as was to help you with managing your insulin, your blood glucose. And then in a fat loss phase, it can be very helpful to aid in your performance and recovery. And then if you're at maintenance, it's still good for both of those reasons. So I guess we can start with our pre-workout. And I think that's probably the most common question because people train at so many different times. So it's like, when and what should I eat, pre-workout?
Yeah, I think, one thing I'll always caveat here is if you haven't got your energy balance right first, you need to start there. You shouldn't even be worrying about nutrient timing if your energy balance isn't where it needs to be.
Yeah, good point.
Because you got bigger, let's get the bigger blocks in place. But when you talk about optimal training and optimal blood glucose management, timing of meals is important, and so once you are hitting your targets, your nutritional targets, then you can sort of broaden your scope to looking at how to best optimize performance around training and blood glucose management. So it's just about making sure you've got enough glycogen in your muscles with training, and you've got enough active blood glucose in your blood to give you that burst of energy that you need when you're in the gym and you're able to increase your strength.
Yeah, and just remember that glucose is your body's preferred fuel source. And the easiest way for your body to do that is to get it from carbohydrates. So when you eat a meal of carbohydrates, your body's going to break that down into glucose. And if you need it then and there, it will use the glucose. If not, it's stored in your liver and muscle cells as glycogen. And I mean, your body can break down non-carbohydrate substances into glucose, but that's very difficult. So carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source.
Yeah, as you said, the body can turn fats into energy, but it's a very inefficient method.
Yeah.
And it's a very slow methodology. So, if you're looking for, this is why, and I always say this, you'll never find, or you don't generally find, top tier athletes of any sport who are keto. You just don't find it. It's like, you can tell people doing keto or ancestral. I get a lot of benefit from doing keto diets, eating that way, but I also know that it's not optimal for energy usage. And the reality is that is borne out by, if you look at athletes, professional athletes, how do their diets look? And you'll also see before they race and things, do their events, sport, be it football, rugby, they will, hour, 2 hours before, make sure we've got enough carbohydrates in their food, and and those variations of how far away from the activity window is how the closer you get to activity, the more simplified your carb needs to be, because you need it quicker. So the further away from a training window in that, when we're looking at training, you can get away with full meals, complex carbohydrates. It takes a bit of time to break down, more fiber, because that needs to digest to then become bioactive. Bioactive, is that? Yeah,
no,
bioavailable.
I like it. Yeah,
bioavailable in the body. When you get onto things like look at really simple carbs, like in the bodybuilding show, the stuff you have before, maybe 10-15 minutes before you jump on stage, like a bit of jam or something, or a teaspoon of honey. It could be anything, but it's simple. It's sugar, essentially. You're gonna take on sugar almost in a neat form, but it will go and spike your blood glucose quickly. But that's then energy to use immediately.
Yeah. So let's how about we look at the person who trains first thing in the morning. Like what is the optimal timing, and what would they eat? Say if you train at 6 a.m.
Well, assuming it's the first thing you're doing in the morning, first I'd look at the previous meal at night. That's as much as many people are scared of having carbs at night, you're not going to be doing so too much at night. So it'll all be stored up glucose and glycogen. And you're doing it thinking of the next day, which is the morning of training. And if you want, I guess morning, it's not easy to wake up, cook a meal, eat a meal, and then go training, especially if you're you're on a time restriction. So you want to think, just wake up, get my water pre-workout, whatever it is, and go straight into training. So I'd say first, if you're an early trainer, first look at your last meal before you go to bed. If you have no problems eating carbs at night, if it doesn't mess with your mental, if it doesn't mess with your mind, that would be the first thing I'd do. Keep those carbs in at night as one of your last meals before you go to bed.
I think it's important to understand, for people to understand this. When we talk about simple carbs, about blood glucose spike, that is not going to give you the muscular glycogen stores.
Yeah.
Because it's available. So what you want to do is make sure, even before you look at immediate energy sources, is to look at how can we replenish our glycogen in our muscles. And after a day of being busy and active, you are going to need quite a decent meal before bed to make sure you wake up with fully loaded glycogen.
Yeah.
And then come the next morning, you can either, I would prefer to say have something a bit more, you can even have a fruit juice, put some oats in, or smoothies. I prefer smoothies, but it's all to do with how far before the difference between the time you wake up versus the time you train. If we're talking it's within an hour, you're going to have to look at something that's quite really quick to digest.
Yeah.
Pre-digest. So you could have a smoothie if it was not very fibrous. You could have fruit juices, but that's on the top of what you ate the night before.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you have enough stuff, enough glycogen in your nighttime meal to make sure that you are ready to go.
I think like you said, if you're not okay with having your carb heavy meals at night, I think smoothies are amazing. Even if it means, waking up 15-20 minutes earlier, maybe it's been pre-prepared the night before. I think smoothies are amazing.
I always say pre-make them, have them ready to go.
Yeah.
Because sleep, let's not get what you don't want is people, cutting their sleep short to eat if you can help it.
Yeah.
It's like, but so as long as they're getting enough sleep, I put sleep above the actual
true.
pre-training. So, what time are you going to bed? Will that eat that last meal? And there's timing that last meal of the day to to make sure you can sleep properly. Then sleep, then wake up. But once you nail that, you'll wake up and you'll have loads of energy. From eating the night before. You have that smoothie. And you're good to go, or you should be good to go.
Yeah, true.
I think that's a really good point. Like, don't sacrifice your sleep. Don't be waking up at 4 a.m. so that you can, have your pre-workout meal. I mean, unless that's part of your routine. And, important to know that, your liver can store about 8 hours worth of glycogen. So it is important to, if that should generally cover you throughout the night. And then if you, like gents have said, have a smoothie, or like Andy said, a fruit juice. That's such a, and fresh fruit juice, rather than a packet one, gets the vitamins in there as well. And or you could just have a banana. That's pretty easy to digest. Try to keep the fats down, just because that does take a bit longer. But yeah, banana, protein smoothie, a rice cake, it's just something, because I know a lot of people don't have an appetite in the morning. Or the other thing is, make sure you have a nice, carb heavy dinner the night before, and then use intra-workout supplements, or even you could use instead of a specific like carbohydrate, cyclic carbohydrate, cyclic dextrin, or essential amino acids, you could kind of make your own little cocktail. This is what I do, with like coconut water, orange juice.
Say coconut water, fruit juice. There
you
go.
Oh, it's so nice.
And some salt.
You can even, to be fair, if you've already bought protein powder, you can use protein powder mix your fruit juice and coconut water, because then you get the aminos out of a protein powder.
Yeah.
You get the electrolytes out of coconut water and the carbohydrates out of fruit juice.
Yeah,
Nice.
there's a client who's been doing that, and they've told me I should try it. So
yeah,
told you. Are you
yeah, I think
he listens to other people.
No, with whey protein.
No, well, sometimes they put collagen in. But this is a good point, because collagen is not a complete protein. Just remember that. But not with the
whey, like
with the coconut.
With the way Andy's saying, like you're saying, it's amazing.
Yeah, you have it.
All right, try it, and just
I've had a protein shake whilst training before. I was like, well, get some aminos in there.
Yeah, no, I think that works, and because all these supplements do add up. I think like the cyclic dextrin here is maybe 5,000 essential amino acids, another 3,000, and then if you're someone who takes a pre-workout, that's another 3,000. It gets expensive, so you can use natural products. So the coconut water, orange juice, salt, whey is such a great combo, as well as supporting your adrenals. There's a bonus in there. But if and then like pre-workout is another one. We might as well just throw that in there as a bonus. Like,
see, pre-workout, I always tell clients it's not an essential supplement. However, if you like it, have it, but look at your caffeine levels across the day, because pre-workouts are very high in caffeine. I've actually started using lower caffeine. I realise caffeine generally doesn't do much to me anyway. So therefore, I might as well use a pump product when training and not a high stim pre-workout.
Yeah.
So, because it's all just added. I'd rather have a couple of cans of Monster a day than and worry about the caffeine in my pre-workout. But here's the thing, some of them have some good stuff in, like the creatine, and it's just one way. But make sure you've had something digested first, that you've had you hydrated with some water before pre-workout. You should be waking up at 5 a.m. The first thing you're doing is smash a pre-workout and head into the gym. It's it's not gonna be good for you.
I also think
sorry, our dog is dreaming. I don't know if you can hear.
I did hear that. Good.
But,
I love a dreaming dog.
Chasing a monkey.
I was going to say also, this is crazy. Anyway, all this like the pre-training, we're assuming like you said, sleep is key. We're assuming you're sleeping well. It's not, you've eaten a nice meal at 8 or 9, then you're going to sleep at midnight only to wake up at 4 a.m. to go push a heavy session. It's one of those, you just have to set your priorities right and decide, okay, this means a lot to me, so I may have to sleep earlier if I want to train earlier, or prepare my smoothie the night before and not wake up and be rushing through it and then, blame time for that. So all this is just assuming you have the basic foundations under control. So
and then just a quick note, like just on stress, like for those people who just wake up, have a coffee, have a pre-workout, and then train fasted, that would to me be the ultimate no, especially as a woman, but because that can have huge knock-on effects on your hormones. But you are just flooding your body with stress hormones. For one, like the caffeine is going to spike your glucose, it's going to release cortisol, and because you've not eaten anything, then your body's going to be in a catabolic state where you're actually breaking down muscles. So please don't fall into that fasted, caffeinated state there. And I know it is tempting for many people because they're like, oh, I'm not hungry, or they think that this is going to be burning fat. Please don't do that. You want to fuel your performance. Don't see your gym time as a time to be burning extra calories. I mean, if it does, great, but you're there for the other benefits of it. And for that, you want to push performance and you need to fuel that.
Yeah, true.
Fasted caffeine run over.
Yeah, which I think many people do that and
Many
wonder why. Yeah, and you wonder why progress isn't, you're failing progress. Then there's that one day, maybe you went out with friends, had a nice big dinner, potatoes and everything. You wake up and you're like, oh, the pump, the training was good. And it's
yeah,
just
because
that.
you fueled it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we normally train like mid-morning, midday, and I prefer to have at least 2 meals in because I notice a difference if I train in the morning with, I mean, if I train in the morning, it would probably, I'd try and eat something, but it wouldn't be the same as having 2, carb meals in. So yeah, it'll all depend when you train. So I think Andy, you train in the afternoon, don't you?
Yeah, so I always say to people, if when someone says to me I can train either before work or after work, which one do you prefer? I'd always say after work. I said whilst you're more generally fatigued, you can get through that. At least you've had probably at least 2 to 3 meals.
Yeah.
Right? When you're training and trying to squeeze it in the morning, you're rushing it anyway. So just if I prefer the afternoon. I normally have 3 meals. By that point, and it's a little busier in the gyms at that time, but I'm fueled and I'm good. I prefer to train then anyway.
Yeah, and we eat generally like an hour and a half before we train, and we go for more simple carbs. So go-to for me is just white rice, plain white rice.
Yeah.
Usually with chicken, and then keeping the fiber and fat quite low. So it's all easy to digest. There's not much, you're not going to be at risk of any sort of GI distress, hopefully. And I mean, you do the same, don't you?
Yeah, I just usually and a banana.
And having a bit of fruit as well is really great. So you've got different types of carbs.
Yeah.
So that's if you do that like an hour and a half or even 2 hours before you train, if you can, that's optimal.
Yeah, I always say 2 hours to 1.5. You don't really want to get below 1.5. But as we said, for the closer you get to training, the more simplified. And I always talk about sort of pre-digested food. So anything sort of like mince.
Minced chicken breast.
It can even be oats and stuff. Anything that's sort of blended down a bit. Cream of rice type situation where as the closer you get towards that training, it goes from being a meal to that's why the last thing is kind of a smoothie juice stage because it's right far down on that that sort of scale. So keep it simple, keep your fats low, and then and go straight in.
Yeah, and I guess depending on what I'm training and how hard I plan to push, I might throw in an intra training drink, like the cyclic dextrin you're saying. But if I feel like if it's a arm shoulder session, I never feel the need to add in like a cyclic dextrin. But I've noticed it comes in handy on the days I'm doing maybe higher volume leg or higher volume back days. Those ones, an intra carb source has really come in handy for me big time.
Yeah, if you're doing, I think, workouts over an hour, if it's under an hour and you've fueled properly either side, you don't need to go there.
Exactly.
That's just you just don't need it. But
I tend not to use the AAs at the moment unless it's leg day.
Unless it's an intense session, and like you'll know if you've run out of carbs. It feels like you've just hit a wall. And like I used to find that when we did the JP training, and that's when I started taking that cyclic dextrin. It made a huge difference because those workouts are about an hour and 20 minutes. Whereas now I try and keep my training under an hour and not as intense, just for reasons of managing my Hashimoto's. And there's no way I would need that now. So I think, or if you're doing some crazy CrossFit stuff, or if you're, if you're doing, I guess, I mean, I don't know a lot about like cardio endurance training. I guess you're taking more like gels and things, but in your resistance training session, if it's under an hour, I think, just ensure, rather than spending money on supplements, ensure your pre and post training nutrition is on point, and you won't need that.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how intense you train, your goals, and if you have extra money to spend on exercise.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, you can do it. Sometimes they're nice tasting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you didn't know, and that's the reality. If you can afford it and you've got everything else ticked off, you might as well. But yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, it's like you say, if you have whey, I think you can use it for multiple occasions, so to speak.
Like in prep, you can use EAAs.
Yeah.
Because normally very low calorie. Your energy levels are a bit low because you're not eating so much food. You're getting in cardio and training. So during prep, EAAs are
good.
important. During the off season, you're eating so much anyway, but actually you don't really need EAAs at all. And that's why I'm at the moment. That's why I'm not really having any.
Yeah.
So once I'm back in prep, it will be a different story.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Like if you are in a fat loss phase, they can be really useful, because I know, like Andy, you used to try and like push your first meal back. So then having some essential amino acids could be really useful. Or if you are training sort of in the morning and you're in a fat loss phase, then having an intra-workout supplement, or even just the coconut water orange juice combo with some essentials or your whey would be really great, because you're trying as hard as you can to hold on to all that muscle that you have built. And if you're not getting enough, then your body is going to start breaking it down, because it's an expensive tissue, and you also need like a certain amount of protein to stimulate protein synthesis, and that's usually about 20 grams. So yeah, just throwing that in there as well. So fat loss, you've got to really be on top of it. And I know your carbs might be lower in a fat loss phase, but you want to fuel your training, because you also need to provide your muscles with a stimulus so that you keep them. And if you don't have enough fuel for that performance, and you're having really subpar training, you are going to lose muscle. So it's so important, and I guess we can talk about that now. That's that sandwiching your training with the majority of your carbs. I would say whether or not you were in a fat loss phase is really beneficial. So, in a fat loss, that will help fuel the training. And if you are in sort of a gaining phase, then that will help with managing your blood glucose and insulin, because that's, when your body is most likely to use all those carbs.
I always say to clients, your higher carbs should be around your highest activity levels.
Yeah.
Because this is a reality. What are we using carbohydrates for? Energy.
Yeah.
So if you're not, they're not really. There's no real need for them. So high carbs, and then how we look at those carbs, it's like different. Pre-training, keep fats low, high carbs. Post-training, increase the fats and keep carbs relatively high still. You want to replenish. You want to replenish a glycogen, but you're not going to be active, so you can slow down digestion by adding the additional fats and higher fiber carbohydrate sources.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about post-workout nutrition. And when you train, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. And that is the one where you are not prioritizing digestion and chill. So you want to make sure you are relaxed and you switch back into your parasympathetic or rest and digest system before you eat. you know, if you've hit that pre-workout, you've hit some pretty intense music, it might take you a while to calm down. So you don't need to be getting in your post-workout meal like within half an hour of training, otherwise you're going to lose all your gains. That's just not true. Most important is you are calm, and then you have your post-training meal. I usually have it like an hour, just 45 minutes to an hour after I train.
Yeah, it depends on how hungry I am, but
well, that too. That too.
I try to give it about half an hour. If I'm super hungry, I'll just eat. But
it's one of those things. How long is your journey back from a gym? You know, the anabolic window, like when I was younger, it used to be like, quick, make a protein shake while I was just still at my gym. Go to the water fountain, and everyone was doing it. But now we understand the anabolic windows, there till at least sort of 6 hours post training, if not longer. So there's no rush. And you're right. I always tell clients, wait until your resting heart rate's back down to base level.
Yeah.
Because your digestion will be affected when you've got elevated heart rates. You're in a slightly more stressed state. So you want to be, as Claire said, just chilled. You want your digestion to be optimal. When we talk about optimality, that's not even a word either. I'm just making up new words.
Bioactive, it's all good.
Optimality. So if you want to be optimal, you need to be looking at, where's my heart rate at? Should I be eating? Am I relaxed enough? To be eating. This is half problem with people when we eat at work and we grab and go at work and we're in and out of stressful meetings or just food. You can't digest properly. You're not getting the goodness out of food. And all that's happening is you're increasing blood glucose with very little digestive benefits because you're eating in a stress state. So what you want to do is just let your heart rate come down, be relaxed, enjoy your meal.
Exactly. And it's kind of similar to your pre-training meal. So a relatively simple carb to digest. I mean, rice, potatoes. And again, I might add in some easy to digest veggies, and a little bit of fat. But I, again, keep it relatively simple. And again, go for, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's like, is it like 1.5 grams of carb per body weight, something like that? If you're going all sciencey, but just think like 50% or maybe a bit more of your carbs around your training, and you'll be good. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, I usually have like 150, maybe 200 grams of rice afterwards, kind of the same before. And then, piece of fruit as well. Don't be scared of fruit. It's a great.
Fruit is amazing.
Yeah. And then I keep sort of more of my fats and more of the veggies for like my first and last kind of meals. I find that it works.
It's one of those things where I'm never too stressed about post training, how quickly it goes in, because we know about anabolic windows open.
Yeah.
But you do want to replenish your glycogen. But I always think that's where you can get some fiber in as well. You don't need loads, but you should be getting vegetables per meal anyway. But the only meal I say you don't really need your vegetables is your pre-training if it gets closer to your training window. I have mine far enough away where I can have vegetables with every meal, but it's also how much bloat fiber and vegetables cause you, because that can affect digestion as well. So it's there's a main takeaway to a lot of this is finding out what foods you digest well.
I
talk about this with clients who go on stage. It's like when we go, what carbs should I use to in peak week and stuff? It's like, well, what carbs have you been eating digest really well? I wouldn't start changing anything. Keep to rice. If you've been having rice a lot, I always say keeping some potatoes for the potassium. That's to do with water balances. keep up potassium and sodium at a good level. But outside of that, rice, stay away from things like bread because it's likely to cause bloat. And once you're bloated, your digestion is off. You're not going to be digesting properly if your stomach's filled with gas.
Yeah, it's so true. Like finding what works for you. Like I can eat like zucchini, carrot, no problem at all. But like if you're having a huge bowl of sort of salad with raw kale and raw cruciferous veggies before or after you train, that might not be such a good idea. But
I don't understand people's obsession with broccoli.
I know.
I
people digest broccoli terribly on the whole.
Excuse me.
People like, why are you eating broccoli? You don't even digest it properly. I think,
I'm one of those. I used to love it, and I learned about it in prep, and it's like, well, it's rice, chicken, and broccoli. It's the bodybuilder way, but
broccoli's a terrible choice.
It was bad for me, and I'm like, yes, I like it, but it just doesn't work, and forcing it is just not doing me any favors. And there's so many other, I'd say, green vegetables that my body can digest. So it didn't make sense. I kept forcing it for a very long time, but
don't feel like you have to eat, like I generally find like cooked vegetables are much easier for you to digest. And I mean, broccoli is okay, like well cooked. I don't know how people eat it raw. I just don't. But I would keep that way away from your eating, and you'll be good. So what about people who train late at night? What would your tips be for them?
Well, training late at night, you should be fully loaded on your glycogen. As in, you've had all day to get your meals in.
Yeah.
And when you hit training, don't have caffeinated pre-workout. Once you get in there, what you want to do is you do have to manage the hard bits post-training carbohydrates.
Yeah.
You're probably better off with intra carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
Because it depends on how much time, by the time when you say late night, between getting optimal sleep. Again, I would say if the window between the end of your training session and when you need to go to bed is narrow and you find yourself force feeding yourself really quickly, getting indigestion, ruins your sleep, don't eat after the gym, shower, go to bed. If you have intra carbs, you can be carried over to the morning to have your first meal. Because sleep is more important.
Yeah. I think people just have this idea that I've trained, I must eat. It's like even if it's midnight, it's like you've trained, your body's in like the fight or flight, so even sleep will not come by easily. Then go eat, there's digestion. So it's where if you've set your meals well throughout the day, then like you've said, have your intra, maybe after have a light whey protein alone.
You can do it in reverse. You could have another smoothie on your way home.
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those things where what you don't want to do. What you don't want to do is just force food when you're stressed. Go without sleep purely for the sake of a meal. The difference is, if you are a like pro bodybuilder in a gaining phase, your priorities are different. But a person who's got a normal 9 to 5 type job, you'll get up for work and you're set on your timings and stuff, and you can't lay in and sleep. You have to think, let's prioritize sleep, because for overall health, that's probably one of the most important things we can do for ourselves. Consistently have good sleep patterns. So is what you're doing going to impact on your sleep? Because as we said, if you're eating well all day, you've still got essential amino acids in your blood, you've got triglycerides there, you've got your carbohydrates. You'd be a little bit depleted, but you go to bed, you don't need to be active. You can wake up and have your first carbohydrate loaded meal. it's the opposite way round to the morning training. It's, you don't need to be carried over to the morning.
Yeah, I'd say I'd say the same. If your training is the last thing you do before you get home, yeah, shower and sleep. Put your meals where your last meal is your pre-training meal, and then just get home, shower, sleep, hydrate and sleep. Yeah,
I've done it like a stage where I was really busy. I had an app for a gym. It was a 24-hour gym, and it could tell you when the gym was relatively empty. And so me and Catherine was working late, and when we would go to the gym at like 11 o'clock at night when it was empty, I would just grab a whey shake, after I finish, sit, do some stretching and stuff in the gym, get my heart rate down, chill. Then on the drive home, drink my whey protein, and I'm going to bed.
Get home and sleep.
Yeah, that's the good thing about if you have to drive to and from a gym.
Yeah.
You've got that time to.
You just got to walk slowly to yours.
Ooh, very slowly.
You need that time to.
It is. I think, if you do have like a 20-30 minute drive to your gym, like use that. That's really useful.
Put on some chilled music. Don't put on anything hectic.
Yes.
Just, or a podcast and just relax.
Yeah. Don't meet any pro boxers or matatus on your way back, and you should be okay. But I think just going back to what Andy said in the beginning, just making sure you've got your big rocks in place first.
Yeah.
And that sleep is up there. Like, don't get sucked into the anabolic window or getting, too caught up in being perfect. Like you get the big rocks, and then you can look at optimizing things and making sure that, it works for you, your lifestyle, your training schedule, your budget. And you really don't, I want to emphasize this, that you really don't need to go and buy a load of expensive supplements. You really don't. You can get everything you want from food. Like right now, I don't even use a whey protein powder. I get everything I need from my food. Like whey is so useful. And I think for many people, it's a lifesaver. But again, like if you can't afford it, you don't have to have it. You just need to be a bit more organized, with your meals. But thinking ahead and planning, like, for the smoothie in the morning, like just prepping things so it's all really easy for you. I think that makes a huge difference. And then, I mean, like we just try and eat the same time every day. Like even if it's not, like even today we're not training, we generally will eat at the same time, and that just helps get your body kind of knows what to expect and when. I mean, we generally eat the same kind of things, so that all makes it pretty easy for us.
I was going to ask you there, because I generally eat the same on my rest days. I was wondering if you had slightly different rest, like for some of my clients I do different rest day nutrition.
Yeah.
Do you guys reduce the carbohydrates on your rest days, or?
Yeah. Like what I'll do is I'll just eat more potatoes and root vegetables rather than rice. And I will. We both do. We both eat more fat on rest days. Keep protein the same.
Pro fat.
Yeah. And then I'd say my rest day is just a meal less than my normal days, which it's something since I did the coaching with JP, I just kept it that way, and it's just stayed. So, and it works perfect for me. So I don't know, maybe some people are like this, maybe, but when I don't train, I don't feel hungry that much. So it works amazing that I'm able to control my, say, carb intake on rest days.
Pull out your pre-training meal.
And I've perfect whether I'm cutting, massing up, not really craving much. I'm not feeling too tired unless the previous training session was like super intense, then I'll feel it a bit, but the meals still they're just good. I'm not suffering throughout the day, the rest day, sorry. But it's
I think like it really depends on like for some clients, I feel like they can manage that, like changing their calories. For others, it's just like, you know, just keep it the same. And I mean, you do want to, you know, on rest days, you're prioritizing recovery. You know, you want some carbs, you know, to help replenish all your glycogen stores and to help with repair and all of that. But
the protein just never changes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just, I just find, because I mean, I keep my steps up. Sometimes now I'll do like a cardio session. But if I do a cardio session, then I'll keep the carbs high. All that. So, you know, if you're someone who's listening and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm just struggling day to day, like, don't worry, you'll be fine. But if you're like, that's easy for me to change your calories, you can give it a go. And, you know, that's all kind of part and parcel of carb and calorie cycle. Like I keep, even on the rest days, my calories are the same. It's just that the carb and fat ratio will change. But you sound like you actually reduce your calories.
Mine, I'm sure, just because it's a meal down, but I have my proteins higher and then the carbs just stay the same. So it's...
But with the higher protein, will the calories be the same?
No.
Okay.
So it's always lower, but because on my rest days, say I usually do about 300 grams rice. On rest days, it'd be maybe 250, depending on how I feel. But the protein can go up by 20-30 grams. So I always try to keep protein up, but carbs, very dependent on how I feel. But I've just followed the same. It's been 2-3 years now, and it seems to work perfect, and just gives me a sense of routine that even if I was to do a prep, not much would change, I guess, apart from the amount of food or extra steps. Like it just makes it simpler to play around with.
Absolutely. I mean, what's your guy? I mean, sorry, it's just I see like so many people like get their cereals game on after post-workout.
I love
you have your
cocoa shells,
whatever
choco shells, Morning Harvest, the Kenyan brand.
I generally just try and stay away from those kinds of things. I would prefer to have like a fruit and less processed food, but that's more for health reasons for me. Like I don't think you have to demonize the cereal or anything.
Cereal's got a place if you're trying to cram in calories as well. It's very easy to digest.
And then
choco shells, it's not good.
And then I just like it. Just one. My post-training meal, I look forward to it. It's the rice, mince, bit of veggies, and then the choco shells, just like the cherry. And then for some reason, it's a bit dumb, but it's one of those meals that make me feel like a bodybuilder. My favorite bodybuilders always, they scoffing down their cereal after training, and it just gives me that identity. Like I feel like so it's silly, but it just makes me feel like I'm still living the lifestyle, even though it's just one of those meals that give me that sort of identity. So I've never changed it.
Just if you are going to eat cereal, like you do want to watch the portions of it. Like they are chock-a-block full of.
I never
watch out for granola. People eat granola thinking it's a healthy option, but it's about 1 billion calories.
Because I never do more than 70 grams. So, and I keep it mostly for like I said, the heavier training days. On leg days, I'll have 70 gram maybe, and then at heavy back or push day, I'll do 50 to 60. So
do you mix that with whey, or do you just have?
No, because I have it with my rice and mince, and then I finish with the choco shells and lactose-free milk or water, like 25 mLs of lactose-free and water. So nothing crazy.
But I would say like you don't need to do that to be a bodybuilder. And just if you're going to do it, like please weigh it out. And I think get most of your carbs if you can from like a whole food.
If you're going to be a bodybuilder, you've got to be able to neck raw egg yolks. You definitely have to do that.
Actually,
please tag me in any videos.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Also, the reason the choco shells are there is it's the same way, you know, when you get a client and JP asked me, like, what do you enjoy? And I was like, if I can have my chocolate daily and I've been having the cereal I like, you know, I'm fine eating anything else.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what, perfect. So he put that, you know, it could be a mindset thing, but that's
a good point. But like, so if you are someone who loves, if it's sweets or something very sort of high carb, high sugar, then actually having it after you train, that would be a good time to have it, like, say, rather than before you go to bed or something like that, where you're not using it. So
and it's not a 200 gram bowl. It's very it's pretty much for the work I've done. If I know I've trained like past week or two, my training's just been, you know, it's more for my recovery, so I'm not really pushing it. So there's no need for, like we say, the extra years or the choco shells. So
you're sensible with it. Just be sensible with it. But if it's like that one thing in your life that you love, you know, then that's a good time to have it. So that's where, you know, just being a bit more knowledgeable of sort of when your body is more sort of sensitive to insulins, but use those carbs, that can really help. So I think we've covered everything there. Any takeaways you want to add?
I'll just say what Andy is always saying: if you have the ability, you know, doesn't hurt to check your blood glucose, find out what's happening. So it's always good, and you can experiment with different foods. You know, have your rice, check 2 hours later, see what it does, and it doesn't hurt. So that's pretty much advice I'd say. You know, if you can learn more about yourself, just check your blood glucose, see what's happening. So
I think that's really important message. I also think, you know, understanding blood glucose in general is important. Why we want carbohydrates, and that's kind of what we covered in this episode. And it's now just getting people to fill it into how their daily structure works. It's like, you know, have a play. If foods don't digest well and you're at the gym and you feel heavy or you're going to be sick, then, you know, change that pre-training meal to something a bit more quicker digesting, you know, and then have play with that. Have a little play.
So homework, if you haven't listened to our blood glucose episode, go listen to that, because that will probably really help you understand this episode. And then I think get your big rocks in place first, and then you can look to optimize. And again, whether you're in fat loss or whether you're in a building phase or even maintenance, you know, this can all just really help, you know, help with your performance, your goals, and just with your health in general. Right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will catch you in our next episode.